Hey, what's up guys, it's Hovering Banana, and for today's video I thought I'd do a little guide discussing the colors in Rocket League trading. Now I'm hoping this will be useful for any new or inexperienced traders that maybe don't have a good grasp of the concept, and we'll be discussing things like what colors are popular, which colors are unpopular, some of the reasons as to why, what are some items that do well for each color, and even some items that may be in a good color but they do very poorly. So those are some of the topics I'm going to cover. So let me just play my beautiful, well-designed intro and then we'll get into them. So on the side of the screen I'm going to list all the colors. At the very top we're going to have the best, and then all the way at the bottom the very worst. But what I don't want you guys to do is to look at this list and strictly value your items. Like, I don't want anyone saying, okay, they have crimson zombies, crimson second best, that means they're worth more than like black zombies, which are only third, which definitely isn't the case. So this is just a generalized listing of the colors. You're going to have a lot of exceptions, and it's mainly just here for teaching purposes. Now the very first color is white, and one of the big selling points that white has is that it's a neutral color, which just means that it goes well with pretty much any color combination. So let's say you've got an orange car for orange team and a blue one for blue team. Then you'd need maybe some orange loopers for orange and some sky blues for the blue team, whereas if you had white loopers they could work with both teams. And an item that kind of showcases this point is the white endo. So when it comes to cars, and more specifically the painted cars, you can only have one painted version for both teams. So if you had a crimson endo, you'd be forced to use the crimson endo for the blue team as well. And that's one of the big reasons why the white endo is doing exceptionally well at the moment. If Psyonix maybe changed this and they allowed you to have like one car each or one painted car each for both teams, then we'd probably see white endo going down in price and maybe even the other colors going up slightly. If we take a look at some of the painted exotics, white does quite well. You've obviously got the creme de la creme, the white zombies, which is the best painted wheel in the game. Then you've got white discos, which are the best in the disco category. For the newer items we've got the white kalos and the white roulette, which are also doing very well at the moment. And for most of the other painted exotics, white tends to be either average or above average. If we have a look at the uncommon wheels as well as the painted toppers, white generally comes in at second place. The chakram wheels, white's about second, same with the spiralis, and then they probably take first place in the FSLs. So white pretty much performs well all around. So next we're going to take a look at second place, crimson. Now I was thinking of making this video like 1 or 2 months ago, and I would have definitely said crimson was the best back then. Crimson really did exceptionally well when it came to painted exotics, but recently we've been seeing some price drops when it comes to like the Voltiac wheels, the loopers and the discos. Crimson is however doing exceptionally well when it comes to the roulette wheels. However, a lot of people, myself included, believe that the crimson roulettes are being market manipulated, so I'm not really sure if we can take those ones into account. But crimson is still winning in a lot of the exotic wheels, so maybe I'd say what they tie up with white in that area. But where white beats them is in the uncommon wheels as well as the painted toppers. Crimson comes in at around third place for these. The only big exception is the crimson wildcat ears, which are the most popular painted topper. Those sell for about 2 to 3 keys. So we can see crimson's also a solid all-rounder, but I feel white beats it ever so slightly. So on to our third color, which is black. So like white, black is also a neutral color, which gives it a nice little advantage. White does exceptionally well when it comes to painted uncommon wheels and the painted toppers. The black Daichi, the black Tanika and the black Sunburst are the 3 best uncommon wheels, and you could maybe argue that the 4th one is the black Vortex, but I'd probably give it over to the white Sunbursts. Even some of the cheaper black uncommon wheels do really well. Stuff like the black Veloce, the black Stern, the black Alchemist, the black Invader, the black Neptune. All of these do pretty well, and black pretty much wins in every single type of uncommon wheel. Pretty much same thing with the painted toppers. And if we had something like black wildcat ears, we'd probably see those as the most expensive painted topper. But black seems to get held back a bit by its painted exotics. If you have a look at things like the black loopers and the black aura wheels, they look very flat and washed out. You've got some other poor performers like the black pulsus wheels, the black photons, and even the black FSL wheels. However, the more recent black exotics seem to be doing well. The black zombies are one of the most expensive exotic wheels, and the new Kalos and roulette wheels are also doing quite well in black. So there could be a sign that Psyonix is maybe improving on their ability to make black exotic wheels, and if that's the case we can maybe see black stealing the second place. The final thing to talk about though is the black endo. So by now you can tell that like a neutral color is very good when it comes to endos, and black in general is a very popular color. So then you might be wondering why the black endo is one of the worst performing endos. And the reason for that is that the black endo looks very similar to the default endo, and whenever that's the case with a painted item, it really hurts both the value and the demand for the item. Some other examples of this are the sky blue vaults, which look very similar to the regular vaults. Same thing with the cobalt loopers and the cobalt photons, and we've also now got the orange roulette wheels. So whenever Psionics releases some new painted items, you want to have a look what the default looks like, and you generally want to avoid like any of the colors that are similar to that, because the price is definitely going to tank on those, and they're going to be very difficult to trade. So for number 4, I'm going to hand it over to sky blue. I've noticed from all the painted toppers I've sold and all the painted uncommon wheels that sky blue comes in at around 4th place. Also does fairly well with some of the other wheels, like at Chakrams they're about 3rd. For the Spiralis I'd also say they're about 3rd. And FSL wheels they're probably about 2nd. Their standout painted exotic is the sky blue Zombas, and they've got the sky blue endo, which is also doing quite well. And yeah, not too much stands out when it comes to sky blue, however I feel it's also a very solid performing all-rounder. Alright, for 5th and 6th place I'm going to hand it over to forest green and then purple. Now these are actually quite interesting, and a month or two ago I would have put them maybe like 3rd and 4th, and that's because I found that their exotic wheels seem to sell pretty well. They were usually like 2nd and 3rd place in each category, and that was the case for Voltiacs, for Photons, for Pulses, for Loopers, for Auras, and even FSL wheels. But they've kind of died down, and the exotics right now seem quite average, and I have a theory as to why that may be. So several months ago, Crimson Voltiacs were at the top, and then we saw Forest Green rise to 2nd place and Purple rise to 3rd. And this was pretty strange to me because these colors performed pretty poorly on other items, and some people believed they were market manipulated. I do too. But I think what happened is people saw, okay, the Forest Green Voltiacs was 2nd and Purple was 3rd, so I think they used that almost to gauge what the popular colors were. And those Voltiacs have really died down. Before the Turbo Crate, the Forest ones were about 27 keys and the Purple were about 20. And they've both dropped by like about 8 to 9 keys, which is quite significant. So that's my reasoning as to why the Forest and Purple exotics no longer do as well as they used to. So for the uncommon wheels, Forest Green and Purple seem to do like average to even below average. I noticed a lot of my Forest uncommon wheels did quite poorly. Things like the Forest Green Tanikas, Daichis, Sunbursts and Vortexes did pretty poorly. But when it came to painted toppers, both of these seemed to be pretty average. Our next two colors are Cobalt and Orange. Now these last 4 colors that I've mentioned, Forest, Purple, Cobalt and Orange, the gap between all of them seems to be pretty slim, and I decided to rank Forest and Purple higher because they used to have that exotic advantage. But for 7th place I'm going to hand it over to Cobalt. I noticed Cobalt did fairly well when it came to my uncommon wheels. I'd say maybe they're like 5th. I also found the Spiralis and the FSLs to do quite well, and also about 5th place for painted toppers. Now they don't really have anything special when it comes to painted exotics, and they've got some poor performers like the Photons and the Loopers. Now I also found Orange to be pretty average. They did about below average when it came to uncommon wheels. However, I did notice one exception to that, and that was that my Orange Vortexes were quite good sellers, but I don't have any like real reason why. I would just have to guess that maybe they looked good. My Orange painted toppers were also pretty average to below average. Same thing with some of the other wheels, Orange Chakrams, Orange FSL, Orange Spiralis. They were all pretty average to below average. When it came to painted exotics, I found they did slightly better, with most of them being about average. I think the only exception to this was my Orange Zombas. If I can recall, those didn't sell too well. Okay, we just got a few more colors left to discuss. Our next two is Saffron and Pink, and I feel these two are very close to one another in terms of value. However, I'm probably going to side with Pink. In terms of like painted exotics and some of the other wheels like FSLs and Chakrams, I think it's a bit of a tie. Pink does better in some areas, Saffron does better in some others, but I'd say both of them are pretty much below average. However, I decided to choose Pink because I think it does better when it comes to uncommon wheels and painted toppers. I feel it's actually like average when it comes to that regard, whereas Saffron does below average in these areas. Next up, and 3rd from the bottom, we have Lime. And I just have to guess that not many people like the light green. However, something I did notice when taking screenshots months ago is that it was difficult to match the lime painted wheels with the primary color of the car, and hopefully I can find a few examples to show you on the screen. I noticed that happened as well with purple, and something like that might hurt its price slightly. But lime pretty much does poorly in every area, painted exotics, painted uncommon wheels and painted toppers, and it doesn't really have any lime painted item that stands out. So unfortunately I have to put it third from the bottom. Now our second last color is going to grey. Now while grey is our third and final neutral color, people don't really give it that much love. Grey painted on common wheels as well as grey toppers tend to do really poorly. I've only noticed the grey Tanikas and the grey sunbursts have done alright for me, as well as the grey beret did quite well because there's no black beret, so the grey one ends up being the substitute. The grey painted exotics seem to suffer a bit. Stuff like the grey volts, the grey photons, the grey pulses, people seem to not find them very flashy. However, grey does have some standout colors. We've got the grey zombers, those are quite a popular pair of wheels. Then we've got the new grey Kalos wheels. I think those might actually see a rise in price. Those have quite a lot of white in the center, and then just around the outside you've got some grey. Grey also has the grey endo, which is similar to the black endo that I was talking to you guys about, where it looks very similar to the default, which then ends up hurting its price. Now the last thing I want to say about grey is I think it does have a bad reputation, which ends up hurting like the value and demand of some of the items. But I'm hoping in time people realize that not all grey painted items have to look bad. And on to our very last color for today. Right at the bottom we got the burnt sienna. Now this one doesn't really surprise me that much. Not many people want like a brown poopy car, and that pretty much means burnt sienna is like the worst for any painted item. When it comes to painted exotics, painted on common wheels, painted toppers, they all do very poorly in burnt sienna. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you can't make profit off burnt sienna items, but 9 out of 10 times you'll probably have more luck with a more popular color. I think the only burnt sienna item that I'm a fan of is the burnt sienna Voltiac wheels. I feel those have like a cool molten magma kind of look to them. But that is where I'm going to wrap up today's video, guys. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about the colors in Rocket League for trading. If you disagree with any of these, or you feel like I've left something out, or maybe you've got some extra insight into maybe why an item is popular or something, let me know down in the comments. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.